Today's lesson is solving and factoring the equations, but this time we're going to have an a value. So when we did this last week, there was just a 1 there. Today's questions will have a number in for a. So the first thing you always want to do is look for a greatest common factor. And I still forget this sometimes when I'm doing problems, and I'll get through it and there's going to be these gigantic numbers, and then later I'm like, oh shoot, I forgot to pull out the greatest common factor first. So here's our first practice. 4x squared plus 26x plus 42. Why is the what? Is it gigantic? Oh, it must have saved weird then. I'll have to go back and look at it. Okay, so in this polynomial, I can see that they're all even numbers for sure. So I know I definitely could pull a greatest common factor of 2 out. Double check, could you pull out a 4? No, because 4 doesn't go into 26 evenly. Okay, so we're going to pull out the greatest common factor of 2 first. So 2 times what is all of these numbers? So 2 times what is 4, or you just do division. 4 divided by 2. That'll be 2x squareds. 26x divided by 2, or 2 times what is 26x? That'll be 13x. And then 42 divided by 2, or 2 times what is 42? And that's 21. So you're going to divide everything by, and if you see a number that can be pulled out or divided into everything, then pull that out first. If you forget to do it, it's not the end of the world. It just makes you have to do a ton of extra work later. Okay, now when it's like this, we're going to label ax squared plus bx plus c. So we still have the 2 in front. That factor is still going to be there this entire time, and a lot of times people forget that we still have that. So it's ax squared plus bx plus c. So my a value is 2, the b value is 13, and the c value is positive 21. Okay, we are looking for what multiplies to be the a times c and adds to be the b value. A times c, 2 times 21. So we're figuring out what multiplies to be 42, but adds to be 13. Multiply to be 42, add to be 13. And this is just what we did last week. You're just, if you can do it in your head, great. If not, start listing off what multiplies to be 42 and figure out what combination will get you to 13 when you add the 2 numbers. So like 1 times 42, but 1 plus 42 is 43, so that's not it. 2 times 21. But 2 plus 21 is 23. That's not it. 3 times 14. But 3 plus 14 is 17, so that's not it. 6 times 7. Yes, because 6 plus 7 is 13. So we have our combination. Okay, I'm going to go through this slowly because I know this gets really confusing. So what I'm about to do is I'm going to take 13x and I'm going to rewrite it to be a 6x and a 7x, because 6x's and 7x's. It'll be a positive and a positive. Will be positive 13x. So when I go to list out my factors, the 2 is always going to be here. I'm going to have 2x squared. Leave some space because I'm about to write 2 factors there, and then put your plus 21 at the end. So what you're about to do is you're about to take these 2 factors and they're going to add up to be your 13x. It's going to be 6x and 7x because 6x's plus 7x's is 13x's. So all I'm doing is I'm splitting up 13x, and I'm going to rewrite this. So now there's going to be 4 terms here. Instead of there being 3, 13x is going to be split up. You need to figure out what number you want to put first. So we're going to be finding greatest common factor of 2x squared with one of those numbers. And then we're going to be finding out the greatest common factor of 21 and one of those numbers. So you want to think about, does 2 go with the 6 better, or does it go with the 7 better? And does 21 go better with the 6 or the 7? So you have to think about what multiplies, what factors or numbers can be multiplied, and that they share those same numbers. So 2 makes more sense to go with the 6x, so let's put that plus 6x first. So put plus 6x first, and then second put plus 7x. Okay, so all we did is we took this equation, and I just, instead of there being 3 terms inside, there's 4 terms inside. But they still say the same thing, because 6x and 7x is still 13x. So I haven't changed anything, I haven't done anything, I just reworded it kind of. Don't forget the 2 in front. Okay, now this is where people get a little tripped up. So ignore the 2 in front right now. We're going to work with these 4 terms, and you're going to group them into 2. So you're going to group the first 2 and then group the second 2. So we're going to find the greatest common factor of the first 2. So in 2x squared and 6x, think about what is a factor that they share. What number can go into both of them? 2. And then are there any letters that they both share? They share 1x. So pull out 2x. So we're basically doing reverse distributive property. So 2x times something is 2x squared plus 6x. So do 2x squared divided by 2x. 2 goes into 2 just the one time. X goes into x squared, or if I have x squared and I pull out of an x out of it, I'm still left with just an x. Because if I did distributive property, 2x times x is 2x squared, because x times x is x squared. Okay, now 2x times something is 6x. So 6 divided by 2 is 3. X divided by x, I've already pulled the x out, so there's no x left. So we've pulled out the greatest common factor. So we're basically doing reverse distributive property, because now if I do 2x times x, I get 2x squared, and then 2x times 3 is 6x. Okay, everybody so far so good? I hope you're paying attention. You're not in la-la land right now. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing to those second 2. So 7x plus 21, think about what number can be pulled out of both of those. 3? 7? We can pull out a positive 7, so put plus 7. Okay, positive 7 times something is 7x squared plus 21. So if I pulled out a 7, I still have an x. And for 21, if I pulled out the times 7, I'm left with the 3, because 7 times 3 is 21. And again, if you just did distributive property, 7 times x is 7x, 7 times 3 is 21. If you're doing this step correctly, these 2 should be the same. You want them to be the exact same. If they're not, you mess something up. Okay, don't forget to bring down the 2 in front. I'm going to put a bracket just because we don't like parentheses around other parentheses. It just looks weird. Okay, the final step now. So 2 is a factor, so just bring down your 2 because that's one of your factors. The next factor is going to be this 2x and this positive 7. 2x plus 7. And then the one that got repeated is also a factor, that x plus 3. Those are your 3 factors. If I multiply these 3 factors together, so if I do distributive property and then I do FOIL, I'll end up at 4x squared plus 26x plus 42. This part? So if you look at this, it's 2 times all of this. So automatically bring down your 2. The factor that got repeated is one of the factors. So that x plus 3, that's going to be one of your factors. So we pulled out x plus 3, we pulled out x plus 3, and we pulled out the 2. So whatever's left is the other factor, 2x plus 7. Multiplication is commutative. That means it doesn't matter what order. Like 5 times 3 is the same as 3 times 5, right? You can reverse multiplication, you still get the same answer. So if you put this in a different order, that is okay. You don't have to have it in this order. If you want to put the x plus 3 first, that's the same answer because you're multiplying everything. Multiplication, the order does not matter. That's your answer. Those are your factors. There's 3 factors. 2 is a factor. 2x plus 7 is a factor. X plus 3 is a factor. Make sure you have parentheses around those. Okay, ready to try that again? Make sure you're taking good notes because you know you're going to look back at this and be like, oh my God, what did I do? This is question 1A. It says to factor 6x squared minus 21x minus 45. If it says factor, I just need the factors listed. That's different than when it says solve. And I noticed when you guys are doing your exit tickets and activities, some of you are getting that mixed up. Okay, we always look for the greatest common factor first. There's not always going to be a greatest common factor at first. Not every single question will have one, but we always look for it first. So think about 6, 21, and 45. Think about, is there any number that can be pulled out of all 3 of those? Like 6. Could 6 be pulled out of 6? Yes. Can 6 be pulled out of 21? No. 3. Can 3 come out of 21? Can 3 come out of 45? If you're not sure, get your calculator. Do 45 divided by 3 and see if you come up with a whole number. It can't be a decimal. It's got to be a whole number. Can I do 3 times something and get 45? Yep. Okay, so that means we're going to pull out a 3. Okay, for the number 6, if I pull out 3, I'm left with 2x squared. Because 3 times 2x squared is 6x squared. 3 times 2 is 6. Bring down my minus sign. Okay, 21 divided by 3. That leaves me with negative 7x. Negative 45 divided by 3. Minus 15. Okay, now if it helps, label ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, we're looking what multiplies to be a times c, but adds to be the b. A times c, 2 times negative 15. 2 times negative 15, so it's what's going to multiply to be negative 30 and add to be minus 7. 2 times negative 15 is negative 30, and the b value is minus 7. You should be writing all of this down. If you're just sitting there staring at me right now, you know later you're going to look and you're going to have no idea where did I get these numbers from. Okay, so start writing down things that multiply to get to negative 30 and see if you can figure out what's the combination that gets you to negative 7. Hopefully you figure out there's going to be a 10 and there's going to be a 3, because a 10 and a 3 will make 30, and a 10 and a 3 I can do a combination and get to 7. So now you have to think about what multiplies to be negative 30. That means one of them has to be negative. They have to add to be a negative, so that means I need more negatives. So put the negative on the bigger number. So that means I'm going to end up with negative 10x, and I'm going to end up with positive 3x when I go to split up that negative 7x. Negative 10 is going to make it negative 10x. This 3 is going to make it a positive 3x. Okay, I'm going to bring down 2x squared. I'm going to leave a big space because I'm going to write down two numbers there, and then the minus 15 will be at the end. So I'm splitting up negative 7x. It's going to be negative 10x and positive 3x. So figure out which one of those goes better with 2x squared and which one goes better with negative 15. So the 2 makes sense with 10, but 2 and 3 don't go together. That doesn't make sense. 15 could go with the 3. So let's put the negative 10x with the 2x squared. And we'll put the positive 3x next to the 15. Okay, now this is the part where you're going to group the first two terms and then the second two terms. Don't forget to keep bringing down this 3 every single time. Okay, we're going to pull out the greatest common factor in 2x squared minus 10x. So think about numbers. What number can be pulled out of a 2 and out of a 10? And that'll be 2. And then they also both share an x. So pull out 2x. Because both of those terms have a letter x. So you can pull it out of both. Okay, 2x and I pulled out, or 2x squared and I pulled out 2x. So I'm left with, there's still an x there, minus, I had a 10x and I pulled out 2 x's. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. X divided by x, there's no more x's. The x's got pulled out. And then you can double check if you do distributive property, 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times negative 5, a positive times a negative is minus. 2 times 5 is 10x. Okay, then go to the second half. Figure out what are you going to pull out that they both share. So you can pull out a positive 3, so put plus 3. If I pulled out a 3, I still have an x, minus 15 divided by 3 is 5. These two should be the same exact thing if you did it correctly. If you did not get the same thing, you need to reverse a step and start over because something happened. Not always, a lot of times though. So to write your final answer, don't forget your 3 in front because that's a factor still. Okay, here it doesn't matter which one you want to put. If some people like to put the x minus 5 first, I usually go with that 2x plus 3 and then the x minus 5. So the x minus 5 I pulled out, and then whatever's left is the 2x and then the plus 3. 2x plus 3 and x minus 5. Yes, really fast. Okay, so far so good? Or eh? I know, seriously, this is probably the hardest lesson all year. It's the most confusing. Once you get into the habit of it, it becomes more routine, but the first time doing this, it's a mess. Okay, as you can see, there's lots of work you're going to have to show. So clearly, when you get to the end of the week and you have to do your worksheets and there's going to be a lot of work. And I know some of you are still going to turn it in and just write the answer. So clearly, you're going to have to show a lot of work for this lesson. Okay, 1B. 20x squared minus 40x minus 25. First, look for greatest common factor. This one does have a greatest common factor. Go ahead and figure out what can you pull out of everything. Okay, talk with your table. What was the greatest common factor? 5 was what you can pull out. Okay, go ahead now and finish the middle, or not the middle, the end part, I guess. Finish what goes in parentheses. Okay, 20 divided by 5, you're going to have 4x squareds. 40 divided by 5, 8x's. 25 divided by 5, minus 5. Okay, figure out what's your A, your B, and your C. So A is 4, B is negative 8, C is negative 5. Bless you. Figure out what multiplies to be A times C. 4 times negative 5. So what multiplies to be negative 20, but adds to be negative 8. I'll give you a minute to start coming up with your factors. Okay, hopefully you figured out it's some combination of 10 and 2. So they need to multiply to be negative 20, so that means one of them needs to be negative. When I add, they have to add up as negative 8, so that means the negative needs to be on the bigger number. So negative 10 and positive 2. So that means I'm going to end up with a negative 10x and I'm going to end up with a positive 2x. Okay, so I'm going to bring down 5, my 4x squared, leave some space, and then your minus 5 at the end. And now I want to put in negative 10x and I want to put in positive 2x. So figure out which one do you want to put next to the 4 and which one do you want to put next to the 5. So think about with 4 is even, so 4 really could go next to either of those two. It would make sense. I could pull out a greatest common factor of 4 and 10. But the 5, I can't put 5 next to 2 because there's no greatest common factor. The greatest common factor is just going to be a 2, or not a 2, a 1. So it does make sense for the 5 and the 10 to be near each other. So put the 2x first, so positive 2x, and then minus 10x. The 2 gets a positive in front of it, a plus sign, because it's positive. The 10 gets a minus sign in front of it because it was negative. Okay, go ahead and group the first 2 terms and then the second 2 terms. Ignore the 5 in the front for right now. Okay, pull out the greatest common factor. I'm going to pull out a 2x because they both, a 2 can come out, but also they both have a letter x in them. 4x, if I pull out 2 x's, or 4x squared, if I pull out 2 x's, I'm going to be left with an x. 2 x's, if I pull out a 2 and I pull out an x, you need to put plus 1. I need everybody to double check here. It needs to say x plus 1. Because if I do distributive property, 2x times, oh wait, I did that wrong. There needs to be a 2 there. 2 times 2 is 4, x times x is x squared. Then the 2x times 1 is 2x. So I always go back and do distributive property and just double check because I do that a lot. I constantly forget to put like a number in front. Okay, then go to the back end. Okay, this we need to be careful though. So what I want this 2x plus 1 to get repeated again, right? We kept saying this factor should be repeating. I should be ending with 2x plus 1 at the end. So keep in mind, they both have a minus sign in front, so we're going to pull out a negative because at the end I'm going to have a negative times a positive, which will make this negative. Okay, for 10 and 5, I can pull out a 5. And then double check, negative 5 times 2x. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10x. And then negative 5 times positive 1. A negative times a positive is negative. 5 times 1 is 5. Okay, we still have that 5 in front. Okay, then our final answer, pull out down your 5. I always do this first, just out of habit, I don't know why. And then the one that got repeated. Again, it doesn't matter. You can put them in the opposite order. It's still the same answer. Okay, how you feeling so far? Okay, we're going to do one more. I'm going to start it with you, and then you're going to finish it with your groups. Negative 5x squared plus 8x plus 4. Okay, write yourself a note, because I don't think I made this clear before. You want your a value to be positive all the time. So if it's in standard form, your a needs to be positive. So you want to get a positive value for a. Yeah. So right now it's a negative in front. We want to make it positive. Okay, first let's see if there's a greatest common factor. So 5, 8, and 4, there's no greatest common factor besides 1. But I do want to get rid of this negative in front. So the way we get rid of this, and make sure you're taking good notes, is we're going to pull out the greatest common factor of negative 1. Pull out negative 1, and now that's going to flip all the symbols. Yes, yep. So then instead of this now being negative 5x squared, it'll be positive 5x squared. Instead of this being positive 8x, it'll now be negative 8x. Instead of this being positive 4, it's going to be a negative 4. Because if I do distributive property, negative 1 times 5x is negative 5x squared, or times 5x squared. Negative 1 times negative 8x, a negative times a negative is positive 8x. Negative 1 times negative 4, a negative times a negative is positive. Okay, now you can go ahead and do your ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, go ahead now and finish this with your tables. So we're ending up with negative 1 times 5x plus 2 times x minus 2. Okay, how's that been so far? How many people kind of are like, okay, I think I'm getting there? How many of you are like, this is like another language? Oh, thank you. Okay. So we're going to keep practicing this. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow you guys have a review activity. On Wednesday, we'll keep practicing this. I will go through this very slowly.